So whatever you believe or you don't believe, what the hell does it matter? I believe in God, I don't believe in God. I say, I feel that God exists, the energy exists. It's a question whether I exist. It's a question whether we exist. But certainly if you look just simple with simple eyes, you see that the mystery exists. Can you make it useful? Can you make people nicer or happier? I don't know that that's the affair of the mystery. That may be the affair of human beings, that they may need to refine their processes. And I feel that is evolving. Can you get there from here through some device? I feel there is here, and it's watching you trying to get there. And there's no end run that you can make around it, except a kind of deep truth in yourself. And a deep truth in yourself is a death experience of sorts.
What do you mean by a death experience?
I mean that when you lose a love in your life, it sends you to a near-death experience.
But won't the mind then attempt to reorganize back to the status quo?
Yes, but whether the mind can make that move once it has true experiences, you see, once it's changing the plane in itself, then you're coming back into the world for different reasons. Then you're coming back into the world because it's a curious place, not a knowable place. So you're coming back into a life from a vulnerable perspective. You're no longer protected around the ego history. In the same way, you understand that it's a different journey. When you come back from these experiences, life is illuminated from a different way. You're vulnerable. You're not cooler than thou, or
so is this
your relationship
or
is
gradual?
to the creative act.
But are you talking about something that's instantaneous, where like, I get it, my heart's broken, and now I understand that my relationship is...
For myself, I had many experiences where I woke up and I was no longer actively engaged in the scene that I was in. It was absurd. I woke up in the Navy and I saw these guys, commanders in the ship, and we were sending up planes, and and I woke up and it was absurd instantly for me. But the situation I was still in, okay. So I then asked to get out, and they punished me so badly. I thought it was a reasonable request that I didn't like it any longer. But it was as if I violated honor and dignity, and it was just absurd. It was absurdly violent and stupid to me. And I felt as an American that I can ask, I don't like this job any longer, I'd like to get out of it. I did my time, but so I was a stupid young man. I got out. Once my mind saw that I was not in it that way any longer, sometimes the sheer perception of it changed the event also. But generally, when I had these experiences, I changed. But it carried on for a period of time, and there's an excruciating period when you're disengaged. In other words, if you see, I saw the madness that ran through the family. And when I saw the madness that ran through the family, I was no longer mad in it. I was no longer conspiratorial in maintaining the madness of it. Okay. So that also comes as a violation of the family. It's as if you wrote about the family, in retrospect you wrote, or you did a film about the family, and you revealed an underlying madness of hysteria, or that people were suppressing themselves to keep it together. You understand? So you discover that in writing about it. But in writing about it, the family may think you betrayed them.
But wouldn't the same...
But you also released it from being a family. You're now meeting these beings as beings. Mary and my mother fell in love with each other as my mother was getting ready to die in Queens, New York. So she fell in love, and I did feel that she would fall in love with a kind of simple kindness that existed in Mary. I always felt that I never saw a simple kindness in the place. I don't know if they were capable of simple kindness, maybe to someone else, but within the construct of family, simple kindness was missing. I feel when my mother met Mary, she absolutely fell for that. And she and Mary concocted this thing of coming out here to die. So in my mind's eye, I felt that I had said goodbye to my mother as mother in New York. The woman that Mary was bringing out here was a woman that I never met before. A story I never met before. A mystery that she longed, that she cared, that she yearned, that she cried, that... Okay. I never met such a being. I could never give them such a life. In meeting that life, that she, when she fell in love with a young man and they ran away, and this, I never could conceive of her having such yearnings, such devotion. Okay. To meet that person was to meet some element of myself before I existed. It cleared up a lot of dynamics that were taking place. In meeting my father in the cancer, I met a parallel being that I never met before. And until you met that being, you didn't understand the story of your life. It wasn't about you. It was always about this mysterious thing. It was the illusion that it was about me and that there was a historical Danny. Historical Danny would step into a mystery from time to time. And I would have that experiences when the life reached a level of vulgarity. When the life reached a level of disconnect between being and expression, being and self. So any time now I see in retrospect that the being was violated by the self, it set off a short circuitry in me. Because as a being, I couldn't really be in this worship, in this circumstance. I woke up in it. Before that, it was an adventure. It was an experience. Until that time, then it was just violent or stupid. So once it became stupid on a deep level like that, and you had to continue, then you had to live in such repression. Because you were being called upon to be instantly available for a violent act. To kill on demand or to shoot on demand became an absurd idea when you saw the guys who were going to ask that of you. How could one live in that without knowing it, that you were going to have a date with that experience? How can one live in a loveless situation without knowing that you were going to have a date with a loveless challenge? Yet inherently we knew from the get-go when we went into the thing that this challenge was going to be there. You saw that in the first minute it was spelled out. And yet you had to stretch it out over time and space to come to that moment. What do you think? What do you say, John?
Well,
we come to this moment here.
Mm-hmm. Your description of seeing that the story is not about you, as for me, really
perceiving that.
Profound.
No. But having perceived that, then the question has come from many of us who are friends and exploring in the world. Having perceived that, then what brings you back into the world? Having perceived an essential being, wouldn't that being just be a monk and then have a face for the world to navigate, but basically its life would be around its being? Then how would this being, what would this being, who was full already, find in the world? So then the question that happens with many friends is, then what to do in the world if you're in this space? How can you sell things? How can you sell rugs? How can you give a crap about any of that nonsense?
So you're saying only if you're invited
Well,
into
I'm not saying, I'm saying come to this space and then what would be the interest of being in the world?